Right, welcome back, ladies and gents. Tonight we've got a special guest with us. We've got Milton Keynes Dons Capitano, Dean Lewington. Thanks for joining us, Dean.
No problem. Good evening.
Cheers, mate.
Yeah, really appreciate it, mate. It's been really good of you to come on. Just a quick one before we sort of get going and have a chat to you about your career, bloody long career as well, still going. We'll just run through a couple of sort of quick questions just to get to know you a bit better, mate. So, first one is, who was your childhood hero?
Growing up, it was probably Stuart Pearce.
Oh, right, yeah.
He was, as a left back when I was younger.
Yeah.
He was someone that I used to look up to and sort of enjoyed the way he played. And there was a bloke at Fulham called Andy Sayers, which, unless you're a Fulham fan, wouldn't mean a lot to you. But in the late 80s, when we were smaller dabs at Fulham, and he was a striker for Fulham, he was one of my favourite players. But not many people apart from Fulham diehards actually know who that is. So
yeah, I've not heard of him.
Yeah, on the grandest game, it probably would have been Stuart Pearce.
Piercy, that's not a bad idol to have, mate.
Not a bad one, mate. Yeah.
What's your worst habit?
Probably putting things off. Just if a bill needs paying or something needs doing, it's I'll do it later, or pay this later, or I'll do something later, and then before you know it, it's a month gone past and there's no car tax or there's no no insurance or something like that. So yeah, just delaying the inevitable.
It's easily done, mate.
Yeah.
What's your biggest fear?
In life or in football?
Anything really, mate. Could be like just something that scares you. Could be something silly like spiders or something. But yeah, anything really.
Oh, yeah, I'm alright with animals. Recently, I've developed a fear of heights since turning 30. I don't know why it's happened, but I'm not a fan of heights anymore. So yeah, that's probably.
It's mad, isn't it, how that happens? Because when you're young, everyone's just got no fear, and you just that's it. And then as soon as you get a little, as you're saying, turn that age, and you've got it's weird, isn't it?
Went on a holiday to Budapest or something. We was looking around one of those churches and tried to climb one of the steeples for the church. Got halfway up and couldn't move my legs. I was like stuck to the wall, and I was thinking, I don't know where this has come from, but I can't do heights anymore. It's really really bad. I don't know why, but yeah, that's come on pretty bad.
That's strange how that can just like a bit like Greg was saying when you're young in it. I've always been terrified of heights. Like even as a kid, like I remember all my mates going to like Thorpe Park and Chesington and all these places. And even as a kid, I was like, "Fuck that! I ain't going. Like, I'm not even going to pretend that I can like face it and like try and big myself up." I'm like, "Nah, not happening." I've always been sort of scared of anything like off the floor. Basically, it shits me up. I'm with you on that. Which team do you support, or did you support growing up?
Growing up, it was Man United as a kid.
I would have loved that.
Yeah, it was just when they like the Giggs Ince team, sort of start of Sky, sort of started Premier League football really. So although a couple of years before I had Liverpool kits, but I don't think I was a Liverpool fan. I liked that crown paint kit they used to have.
That is a classic.
So we had that when I was about 4 or 5, and then we moved on to Man United, but it was always very loose, to be fair, because sort of dad in football.
Yeah.
We sort of followed him around really. So I've never been a real, like, I don't really have a team. Even now, I don't have a team that I particularly follow. I
always wondered that actually with people that sort of grow up in the game, like have a parent that's a footballer, and like obviously your dad Ray Lewington was a quality player and sort of played for a few different clubs. I always wondered if that was one of them things where the kids would just sort of follow the teams that he plays for.
Yeah,
like,
where he was at.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was. I mean, because when we was younger, he was at Fulham, which was like League One or League Two now. It wasn't really like you went to school on a Monday. You didn't really want to say you supported Fulham because it wasn't that, they weren't that glamorous, or no one really knew who they were. So you sort of had your big team and then you'd follow your dad's team sort of thing. And got to an age when I was like 13, 14 where I just sort of lost that sort of connection with a team, and it just never really happened. So I'm sort of a bit of don't really follow anyone, just sort of I like certain clubs and managers and sort of follow them around really.
Yeah.
Wimbledon, Dean. Wimbledon. I supposed to say Wimbledon.
They're gone now.
You're trying to get him in trouble. And then the biggest question of all, this is the main one that I want to know about. We ask everyone, Marmite, love it or hate it?
Love it.
Yes. Get in.
Yeah, like a twiglet is good.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you can't beat a twiglet, mate. We've got like a running question. We do that with everyone. And Greg is our only one who's on here. Like, it's only me and Greg on tonight, but he's
only
the
had
only one on
one.
the podcast that doesn't like Marmite.
I've only had one person that says like, no, they're with me.
Who was that? Was that Seb?
Seb Carroll, yeah.
That was Seb Carroll, and he had never had it. We had to, like, he went out and bought it the next day and sent us a video of him trying it. Yeah, and he fucking hated it as well. So yeah, it's only Greg and Seb so far that ain't sort of interested. But yeah, let's get into your career in that, mate. So you started off at Wimbledon, going through the YTS and that. How did that sort of come about? Did they pick you up at like a really young age, and was they the only sort of team that you had trials with to sort of get into, or how did it all come about?
Yeah, it was. I was about 6 or 7, and I was playing up 2 years. I was playing my brother's 2 years older than me, so I was playing with Craig, my brother. So I played up 2 years, and I was playing for his team. And Craig had got spotted and asked to come, and they asked me to go as well. And I was younger, so they said, well, listen, just come for your training. And there was no team at that time. So it was like first year, 2 years was very loose. Like, used to go in for Easter camps and training days. Yeah. And then when I got to about 8, when you could sign, I signed just for Wimbledon. So really from a really young age, I was always connected with them. And it wasn't really a case of a trial. They just said, no, come in and train. They had like games occasionally at that age sort of thing. And so, and then from then on, it was just progressed through, the years as you do, and then signed your YT at 16 really. So it was good because like they were the local team. They trained in Thames Ditton, which was 5 minutes from my house. And in terms of like after school and that, it was a lot easier for me to get to training because it was 5 minutes down the road and it was local. So it was good.
Yeah, that's quality, mate. What was that like as well, sort of learning your trade? Because obviously it's changed throughout the years. It's a completely different ball game now for the young kids that are coming through in the game. What was it like sort of during the era that you come through? Was it very much a bit more old school, sort of cleaning boots of the senior pros and all of that?
Yeah, it was. I probably caught like the fag end of that. We just turned to an academy. So the age groups changed to under 17, under 19. Right. Before in the old days, it was YTS was just under 18s. So it just changed, but we were still doing jobs. You had like your pros boots that you had to wash, do the balls, the kit, put all the stuff out for training in the morning. And it was better than the old days where you had to paint the training ground and all that kind of game. But we had jobs to do, and Wimbledon was a really, really tough environment. There was still a lot of the old sort of shenanigans going on, and it was like a tough school, and like the youth team was tough. It was a lot of, they'd sort of gone a lot like sort of inner city kids, a lot of boys with a lot of attitude and a lot of things to prove, and it was a tough school. It was the best. I mean, we had brilliant coaches and kids that were so hungry, and it just made for a really good combination of circumstances for a youth team. It was really enjoyable.
I bet, yeah. You touched on like the sort of shenanigans there. And obviously, it comes all the way through, like with the crazy gang and that. Was there? I was gonna touch on that as well and ask you, sort of, was there anyone sort of still about at Wimbledon then that was sort of doing any like naughty stuff? And if so, who was the worst culprit?
We had Terry Burton as our head of academy, and Terry was like this fantastic coach, and before in the old days, women used to have crazy gang on their t-shirts and stuff, and Terry had gotten rid of that. He wanted to change the persona of the club and be a bit more technical and a bit more forward thinking, and so Terry was kind of anti it, but you still had some players crossing over. Would have been sort of like Ben Thatcher, that kind of era, like post Vinnie Jones, but not quite there yet. So we had Ben Thatcher, I think Blackwell was still around, Ian Selly, Ships was still there. So there was a few of the old school. I mean, Thatcher was one that you were sort of a bit wary of. His reputation. Yeah, so he was one, but because we was only first year, we didn't have too much to do with them. You had separate buildings, and you very rarely sort of crossed paths, which was, the way it should be really, because you were trying to stay out of their way or
I bet.
not get involved. Yeah.
Oh, fair play, mate. And then obviously, like you come through the academy in that there, and broke into sort of the senior team, first team. Was it 2003? Just at sort of the time where Wimbledon was in a bit of trouble and Pete Winkleman was about to sort of come in and change things over to Milton Keynes. But you ended up playing. Was it your first full season? It was still Wimbledon, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
What was that sort of environment like? Were you fully aware of what was potentially going to come of it, and did it sort of filter in through the players and that as well?
Kind of. I mean, I don't want to plead ignorance, because obviously I was aware of it, but looking back now, I don't probably not as appreciative of everything that I probably should have been. You're in the kind of like a little bit of a bubble, and it was just like, this is the way it's going to go. Every day someone come in and say, these are the plans for the new training ground, this is going to happen. And it just seemed it was just rumbling on for about 2 or 3 years. It was just like an inevitable, this is what's going to happen. And, there was quite a lot of fan protests by the time they'd just been relegated. And so they lost a lot of that exposure from being in the Premier League, dropping out of the Championship. They lost a lot of that media and sort of that side of things. And so it sort of almost slipped under the radar in a certain extent, what was happening. And then the club sort of fell into an administration before the move happened. And then from that point onwards, like, players got sold, and it became a bit of a circus in terms of, there was no fans at the games. We were playing at Selhurst in front of sort of 600 people, I think it was at the time.
Was that? It must have been weird, wasn't it?
It was. Yeah, I mean, I was sub and 17th man a lot for that period, and then it just became a bit unworkable, really, where there was about a year, 18 months of complete limbo where sort of Wimbledon had sort of disowned the club. They sort of didn't want anything to do with it in terms of fans. They hadn't gone to Milton Keynes, and so they was just stuck in this weird kind of place where nothing was really happening. And as you said, I think the Norwegians pulled out at that time, and it was sort of touch and go whether the club would just stop. And we had, in the summer, we didn't get paid for 3 months, and so we didn't really know whether we were coming or going, really. So it was a really uncertain time, and it was so much going on that you probably couldn't get your head around the full picture at the time.
Yeah. Go on, Greg.
But so bearing in mind that's, as you say, you wasn't making the team as much. You was on like the 17th man. Being like your first experience, how was that for you? And like, what was you getting from the older players as well? Like, although it would probably be the first time it's happening to all of you, for you just making it as a professional to obviously then being a bit more seasoned, was it sort of, how could they even help you? Because it's so unprecedented, isn't it?
It's, I mean, from the youth team point of view, that's all we ever knew. And so, we hadn't played in front of a crowd before. So for us, it wasn't too bad, because we didn't, an empty stadium is what you're used to in the reserves. It's not a big thing. And then we had a lot of, like Craig's year, like Joey McAnuff, Ledger Wood, that kind of Ajuman, they'd broken into the team, but they were still youth team players. And so, from our youth team, so we knew them quite well. And so you had that natural friendship with them.
Yeah.
And the older players were basically trying to get out. They were they could see what was happening really, and for their careers, I don't think they wanted to be a part of it. And so the senior players were really just trying to jump ship, and the younger players were sort of seeing it as an opportunity really of, if someone left and you might be in the team, or, so it was a really, really strange time. And the players were sold, in team meetings before games. There'd be like a team sheet up, and they sold Ajiman before a game at like 11:30 in the morning during a team sheet, and then got a phone call and they said, like, Pat, you're not playing. You've been sold to, I think it was Gillingham, at the time or something. So
he scored some goals and all, didn't he, Ajiman?
Yeah. He was lightning quick. He was a good player actually, and it was just a lot of upheaval. And I suppose it helped being young because you just didn't know.
You want to play football, didn't you?
Yeah, you didn't know any different. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And then sort of, I was going to say, what was the sort of reaction to you staying when it became MK Dons and the move went through? What was the sort of reaction from the Wimbledon fans and the rest of really the footballing fraternity? Because it was the first ever real occasion that this has happened over here. Like we've got some friends that we talk to that are from across the pond in America, and they're football fans, and they don't look at it as really a big thing, because in sports in America it happens every other week. A club moves location just for multiple different reasons, finances or whatever. So what was the sort of reaction, and was there much sort of backlash from the rest of the football community and Wimbledon in particular towards yourself and any other players that stayed around?
It was kind of strange. Even though I played for Wimbledon in Milton Keynes.
Yeah, that's it. Because you moved, and you were still Wimbledon when you went.
So the year I made my debut, we were still in Wimbledon, and then the following season we was Wimbledon in Milton Keynes.
Yeah.
And so
was that the hockey stadium, wasn't
it? Yeah. Place. Yeah, it was. So we was there, and so the first game there was the they had fans come up, and then I think when the whistle blew, they burnt their shirts and got back on the train and went home. And that was kind of, you knew it wasn't popular, but in terms of personally, we never really got any abuse. We was only 19, 18 at the time. And there was a lot of us from the youth team that were still playing that had just sort of, your contracts were the same club, you just sort of carried over. And before that, obviously at that point, there was no social media. And so in terms of actual interaction with fans, it was only really at games, and they just weren't coming to games. And so you wasn't having that sort of stuff that you might have now, where you get messages or that kind of stuff. So it was a little bit oblivious to probably the sort of the feeling of the fans personally. But I don't think at that stage, when we was that young, that there was, we were 19, 18, we wasn't the architect of Wimbledon going to Milton Keynes. It was, lots of other people that were doing other things, and we were just the ones that happened to be stuck in the middle at that time.
It's not like you've been at Wimbledon 7-8 years in their first team, and then all of a sudden decide, oh yeah, I'll stay. Do you know what I mean? That would have been a difference.
It was different. And when we moved, there was, I think my first game, there was 6 boys that was in my youth team that were playing. And so it kind of felt normal in a way, because
easier for you.
it was just like a youth team sort of game where we all come up together. And so it felt like we was Wimbledon in a way, because we was all from that same youth team and that same sort of shared past.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And obviously, like you're still at MK Dons now, and have been for your whole career. One question I wanted to ask you is, are you a one club man? Because technically you are.
Technically, legally I am. Yeah. Because my contract's Wimbledon is Milton Keynes legally.
Yeah.
And so legally I am, but they don't count my Wimbledon games as MK Dons games.
Right, gotcha.
So yeah, it's
because you recently sort of made the 800 appearances for MK Dons, didn't you? So like the 30 odd that you made for Wimbledon is sort of separate to that then.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I didn't know how it would sort of
don't exist in MK's mind, basically. Is that what they're saying?
Yeah, it's kind of a strange. I kind of see it as. I don't know. I don't think about it too much. It's hard to separate the two for me. Sometimes I can obviously understand there is two, and it feels like two, but sometimes it almost feels like one continuation for me. But I would say probably two. You know, it has to be two, really, when you look at it, really, I think.
Exactly, yeah. Just it popped into my head earlier because I was thinking, like, technically he's a one-club man, but it's like, how does that sort of sit, you know? And before we sort of get into your career, the other thing is, obviously, I'm born and bred in Wimbledon and lived in Wimbledon, like, majority of my life. So I know the sort of animosity towards MK Dons from the Wimbledon side of things. How do Milton Keynes fans feel towards Wimbledon? Do they hate Wimbledon? Like,
no,
they don't care?
I wouldn't say I don't care. It's not the same feeling as it is from the other side.
Yeah, I always wondered that, because it's
kind of. I think it's mainly because there's so much feeling against us that there's a little bit of pushback against them.
Of course.
But I don't think it's a genuine hatred or like they have for us. I think it's just a bit more of a sort of
defend yourself.
It's strange because we do have fans that followed us from Wimbledon to Milton Keynes.
What's the sort of percentage of that? Because that's another thing I wondered. How many sort of?
I'd say about 800.
Really?
400 to 800 that come over, which you consider at the time, Wimbledon's fan base was 5,000 or 6,000 is a fair proportion, really.
It's a decent percentage of them, yeah.
And they still, it's when people say about the clubs, it's very hard for me because there are still some people that generally see it as a continuation of Wimbledon. And I think everyone's got a different take on it, a different look on it and how it is. And I'm not sure there's a right answer or a wrong answer.
Yeah.
It's just how you feel personally what it is, sort of thing. But we do have quite a few that followed us from the Wimbledon days, and I think they probably got a little bit more of a grudge against AFC than probably the Milton Keynes based fans, sort of thing.
Yeah, it's mad, isn't it? It's such a strange sort of situation. Go on, Greg.
Yeah, because I mean, it's not. Although Milton Keynes is so far, it's not like they haven't done it before. Because obviously, I mean, I grew up in Plough Lane, literally just over the road from Plough Lane, and they've done it before. So they moved to Selhurst. I mean, that ain't Wimbledon.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? They're playing in Crystal Palace. So, but again, the whole thing of obviously it being 70 miles away rather than, maybe just 10 or something. But it's mad, isn't it? Like the whole thing, how it just happened, and the way they broke away and made themselves a new club, and that it was weird because I mean I remember at the time them going into step 8 or whatever it was with this new club and stuff, and they had all these fans. It was crazy. Yeah, very crazy.
Yeah, I mean I went to a few of their games at the start because a few of my mates were playing in non-leagues like casuals and and they would bring loads, but if I was free or I didn't have a game, I'd go and watch, just put a hat on or something and just turn up and go to a game.
I remember playing against them in pre-season when they first sort of like broke off, and the fact I've never played in front of so many people.
Yeah, it was great.
You know what I mean? It was mental. I'm used to a man and his dog, and then they're bringing fucking, I don't know, it was a couple of thousand.
Yeah,
mental.
I mean, I do think after 20, maybe 25 years, the problem started like 25 years ago. Yeah. They had to leave Plough Lane. There was no plan to go back. Like the area at the time, like no one wanted the stadium anywhere. Like they tried desperately for years to get a stadium. They've always got vetoed, or no one wanted it in their back garden and blah blah blah. And they kind of got left in nowhere. I'm pleased now that they've managed to get the dog track and that's moved on, but
it's good and all.
Finally managed to go back there, but that just wasn't viable 25 years ago.
No, of course.
Dog track was doing all right, and different circumstances. It's just a shame that the club had to leave for the council and the people in charge of those kind of things to then give them the land to actually have the stadium.
Yeah. It's mental, isn't it? Because if they could have kept around Wimbledon as just like at the time one club, there's plenty of space to put it somewhere. There's got to be.
Yeah. They tried. I mean, they tried everywhere. They tried like Roehampton Vale. They tried.
Yeah, just missed out. Must have just missed out on a trick.
Yeah, it was just
Premier League football.
Yeah, I mean the land obviously Sellers was never great. I think they didn't have any revenue from the bars, and they had to give lots of Palace and stuff. So there was always on the back foot. As soon as they left that like Plough Lane, there was always on the back foot, and it was just a matter of time really before it sort of went pop really, and it was a shame because it was a brilliant club. It was unique to its time. It punched way beyond its weight, and it was great. It was a shame that it sort of had to end the way it did really.
Yeah, it is a shame. But like we said, they're sort of back as Wimbledon as such, and they've now got the stadium in Plough Lane, haven't they? So it's almost like if that never happened, that they wouldn't be in the position they're in now anyway. So yeah,
it's a nice stadium to be fair. It's,
have you played there now?
Yeah, we played them. We beat them 2-0. It was
get that one
smile on his face.
It's a lovely stadium to be fair to them. It's really nice. Pitch was great, and facilities and that, a lot better than what they had at Kings Meadow, and so it's definitely a big foot in the right direction for them.
Yeah, I did want to ask about like if you've been there, because obviously the fans ain't been allowed in yet, and being from around the area, it was one of them things that loads of people that are into football from Wimbledon was like, when they go back to Plough Lane, you got to go, ain't you? You got to go and watch. Yeah. So it's a shame because like no one's been able to yet. So I did want to ask what it was like, but that's it's good to hear, mate. But yeah, anyway, so sort of like your first season when it became MK Dons, you was down in League One, or was it called League One then? Was it Division?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it just changed. Yeah.
But and you managed to stay up in your first season as MK Dons on goal difference that I saw earlier. Unbelievable. Was there? Sorry, who was the manager? Was it Stuart Murdoch for that whole season? Because he came from Wimbledon, didn't he?
He got sacked in November, December.
And then Danny Wilson.
Danny Wilson took over for the last 5 months, 6 months, whatever that was that season. Yeah.
Right. So
Stuart was goalie coach for many years at Wimbledon, and then become sort of first team manager through everything that was happening. Sort of, then he sort of got left in charge, and he was in charge for the first 5-6 months.
Oh wow. And yeah, so he kept you up, and then the following season it didn't go so well, and you did go down into League Two, and then Mad Dog came in, Martin Allen. What was he like? Because I've heard some stories about Martin Allen, so I wanted to pick your brains on.
Yeah,
have you got any stories on the man?
They'll all be true, to be fair. He doesn't disappoint. He is what people say he's like, when they say like the scale of genius and madness being, the end of the circles, he is like that. Some of his training was the best I've had.
Wow.
His personal development of you as a player, making you responsible and doing extras. Every day there were sessions to do extras. You could choose like one of 4 sessions before training, after training. He was really good at that side of things. And then he had this switch when he went from genius to complete nutcase, and he was just thinking, what's going on here? He was like, he just we were training on roundabouts, car parks, service stations. We were training in a service station once in a car park. He just had this real, just like glint in his eye where he thought, I'm gonna do this. And he was a great bloke. I did enjoy my time with him, but there's a lot of he's just like, before a game we'd have away game, you'd be having your pre-match, and we were staying in this big hotel, and they had a big dance floor still up from a wedding, I think, the night before, and then this music come on, so everyone's thinking, what's going on here? And he said, football's about relationships and moving together, so you have to pick your player next to you on the pitch and go and do a duet dance together. So he had it was 2 minutes per couple. And we thought he was a bit of a joke and just do a few funny moves, but he was like, no, 2 minutes. So we was going up in twos, doing ballroom dancing in this massive hotel. And he was just sitting there, just loved it. Everyone was just squirming in their chairs, don't want to do it. He found it hilarious. And
was he giving it the old 9 out of 10 and all that?
He was loving it. That was him sort of thing. He was.
Who was your partner, Dean?
I think I had a boy called Nicky Rizzo, a little Australian kid. We did all right, to be fair. Yeah, I don't think we was the worst, but he was just. He was very off the bat, but at the same time, he had a lot of really good ideas.
That is fucking mental. I love that. Go on, Greg.
Oh, mate, I've not heard fucking shit like that before. I mean, that's mental. But no, I was going to say, because my cousin, he was manager at Brentford at the time, for my cousin, and he sort of said he loved his time under him as well. Again, just the same sort of thing. Mental on one part, and then very good manager on the next.
Yeah,
just a character.
Did you hear Fozzie? Nicky Forster as well talk about him? I think he had him, might have been at Reading, maybe, I can't remember. But he said he would call over, there was one stage where he was asking, one of the defenders basically didn't put a tackle in properly. And he's like, hey, no, you fucking tackle, that is shit. This is how you tackle. And he would call over, it wasn't
one of the youth team.
He'd send, Brendan Rodgers was their youth team manager, and he's like, send someone over. So he send over this fucking scrawny 15-year-old, and he'd say someone pass him the ball, he'd pass it, and he would just sieve him down, just standing there. This poor kid just gets smashed one time, and he's like, "That's how you tackle."
That was it. It was we trained. We played Oldham or something. We was training in a park in Manchester, but it was getting quite dark, and we was doing team shape just in a random park. And there were some kids watching us train, must have been 12 or 13. And he made the subs go and play a five-a-side against these little 13-year-old kids who were just join a game. So the subs are over doing their thing, with these just little kids. We're doing team shape in the park. And he had a cone out who was their main playmaker, and we was doing shape, and we went into him who was going to get tight to this person. And he said to someone, play the ball to a cone, and I want you to get tight to him. Someone played the ball, and he's running, he's two-footed the cone. And then he's on the floor, he's elbowing it, headbutting this cone. Just in about a minute of just punching the cone, stamping on it, and then just got up, all straight face, and said, that's what I want tomorrow. When he gets the ball, I want him done, sort of thing. And everyone was just, you just sort of stood there you don't have to laugh or the sort of thing what is this geezer doing? But he kind of got his point across in a way. It was
it's him.
Kind of brilliant, yeah.
Oh mate, he's an absolute hero, the fella. Go on, Greg.
So a couple of players at that time, from what I think I've written down here, so you had Keith Andrews came, and Leon Knight was another one that we've kind of hit on him before with a couple of people we've had on. Just what was he a live wire as much as what everyone thinks?
Yeah, he was a funny boy, mate. Yeah, I got an okay with him. He can sort of rub people up the wrong way, but I always liked him. Thought he was okay.
You're one of the few, mate.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, people don't seem to, but he was one of them. When he come in, he was if he was. No, your turn to be he was gonna have a bit of a stick at you or whatever. He'd be on your case from the minute you come in to the minute you left, and he'd just be one of them little people that would just grind at you, just little comments and little remarks, and he just wouldn't let it go, sort of thing. And he had this really funny laugh that he used to do, and he was very loud, but he was a talented kid, but he just sort of, I suppose, just overstepped the mark. Every now and then, and it sort of got into trouble, but it wasn't in a bad way, sort of thing. I never really felt it was malicious with him.
How he was,
but he was just very old school banter from the get go. And I think the game was changing a little bit, and people weren't quite willing to sort of have that sort of banter anymore, sort of thing, and he sort of got caught in between the two. But he definitely made things a little bit interesting when he was around.
Yeah, I think he's a bit of a throwback 90. I think he'd have been better in sort of yesteryear because he'd have got away with more, wouldn't he? He's
camera phones and that wasn't his friend, and that kind of stuff. Just it wasn't good. His Twitter account for a little bit was hilarious, and then he got kicked off, didn't he? And he went.
It comes and goes. He goes in waves of getting banned, and then all of a sudden he's back. But yeah, it's been off for a while now. I think his Twitter.
Yeah, and that was him really. Like he was, it was really funny, and then it just probably go a little bit too far, and then he'd have to pay the price a little bit, and that's kind of his. If you look at his career, and that's probably the way it went for him. Really, he done really well, and then just sort of something happened, and he had to sort of move on or go somewhere else. So.
Because it weren't his ability holding him back. Do you know what I mean? The boy had talent. He'd score a goal. Well, like you said, he'd go to the tuck shop. That's what he did.
Tuck, yeah.
And
Keith how was he, mate? Like, as obviously, I suppose, was he already an international at that point? And
no, he was. He'd come to us from Hull, and I hadn't heard anything of him. But he was Wolves captain when he was 17. I think it was when they were in the Championship. And to be fair, Keith's easily the best captain I've ever played under. Just a proper bloke, leader, everything you'd expect a captain to be. He was like the original sort of kind of one, and he was a much better player than he ever got sort of credit for.
Good footballer,
and he'd be easily in the top 5 of players I played with. For the year and a half he was with us, he was top draws. To be fair, he scored like 25 goals from midfield, I think, in one season. Just a real sort of leader of men, like no nonsense, just sort of laid it on the line and led from the front. And he's a good bloke, Keith, to be fair.
And during that first season, Martin Allen was there. You finished 4th in the league, and end up losing out to Shrewsbury in the playoffs. One of the sort of catalysts for you having a good season as well was Isel McLeod. The guy used to score shitloads of goals, mate. He was one when we first knew he was coming on. So we've got to talk about him because what was he like? How good was he, and how far could he have gone, sort of thing?
Isel, he was probably one of the quickest players I've ever played with. He weighed about 7-8 stone. He was lightning quick, unbelievable acceleration, and he scored the best goals that I've ever seen. Unbelievable bicycle kicks or 30-yarders, running past 10 people, and he also missed more sitters than I've ever seen a player miss. He just couldn't work. Like I think he scored 20 goals for us one season, and he could have scored 60.
Wow.
He put himself in a position. He was very, very good. He just needed a little bit of more consistency. And unfortunately, he went from us to Charlton and got a quite serious injury. I think he just got called into the England under-21 team.
Yeah.
And then he got a bad knee injury, and it sort of like his pace was his main thing. I think, and any sort of injury was always going to be a sort of hamper for him because that was him really. Like he was just so quick off your shoulder. But he was during his time with us, he scored a lot of goals, and back in the day, like old centre halves were old and slow. Like now, like it doesn't really do it. It's moved on a bit, but especially League One, League Two, you had your big old sort of meathead centre half sort of thing, and Isaac was the last person anyone wanted to play against. He was just he was so quick, but he scored some unbelievable goals.
Yeah, he was class, mate. Go, Greg.
But as Terry mentioned, you made the playoffs against Shrewsbury. Did Joe Hart play for them that season?
I don't know, in honesty.
I was trying to have a look, and because obviously I know he went there, didn't he? Did he start there?
He started there, I think.
Yeah.
Started there. Yeah. It was at the old Game Meadows. I'm not sure I don't know how that puts him.
I was trying to have a little look about, but I just thought I'd ask.
Must have been a similar era, to be fair.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I was trying to find out. I was trying to find the teams and whatnot, but I was struggling a little bit.
Yeah, I think they had a boy up front. I think Luke Rogers. That's the only player I really remember them having. Can't remember anyone else in that team apart from the little striker up front, I think.
He left that season.
I remember him.
Oh, there you go.
I don't remember if he was there or not.
Yeah, he left that season for City. He left in 06 and it was the 06-07, wasn't it? So, yeah, he left then. And then the following year, the club moved from the hockey stadium, that beautiful place that we mentioned earlier, to your current stadium now, Stadium MK. How happy was you that happened? Because like I've been to the stadium as an away fan with Leeds a couple of times, and it's fucking lovely, mate. It's a quality setup there.
Yeah, it's a great stadium. To be fair, it was good because when we were leaving Wimbledon, there was these plans for stadiums, and every day there'd be like a different kind of how it was going to look, and different designs and stuff. And we've been promised when we was Wimbledon, we've been promised training grounds, stadiums before, and they never happened. And we got to Milton Keynes, and it'd been 2 years and nothing had happened. And you start to think, is this another sort of false promise, and this is where it's going to be? So to actually be in that stadium was quite comforting, like to know that they built it and it was there, it was going to be there for a long time, and they'd actually said what they was going to do. But the stadium's brilliant. It's obviously too big for us as it currently is.
What's it old? About 30, is it?
30, yeah.
Yeah.
30,000, which is, we get like 8.5, 9. So it's obviously, it's a big stadium, but I think they was looking more to the future, and sort of, if you're going to build one, you might as well build it now rather than having to keep changing it every few years. So no, it's a great stadium, and it deserves to be at a better level than it is currently.
Yeah. Do you think that sort of, because obviously like we'll touch on it, the level like that you've got to, like we'll get into the championship with MK, and do you think that if the club sort of got to that level and solidified at that sort of level in preparation to sort of go even further and potentially to the Prem, that the capacities will start sort of to pick up because of that, do you reckon?
I think so, yeah. I think it would help.
Yeah.
Like I said, like when we had like yourself come to MK, like I think you bought like 7,000, I think it was, and
yeah, we had fucking loads, mate.
You had, yeah, it was ridiculous. And I think as a spectacle, if you're bringing your kids to it and you got 7,000 leads and 8,000, it makes it a better atmosphere, and it makes it more interesting to newcomers and stuff. So it definitely would have helped to bridge the gap that it needed. But I spoke to so many people that said, when we was in League Two, if you get to League One, I'll probably come and watch.
Yeah.
Then you do, and then if you get to the Championship, I'll come and watch. And it's just like, those kind of fans, they might come to a few games, but they're not going to be your fans every week. And so, their strategy really has been to aim at the kids. Like under 12s go free at our place.
It's a good strategy, mate. Fulham.
Yeah, they're trying really hard to get the younger generation. Just hope it builds. It's just going to take a little bit longer than they probably thought it would do. But as you know, like football allegiances are pretty strong, and even though people are in the city are Chelsea fans or Arsenal, they won't come and watch our game because they're a Chelsea fan. So they're you might need their kids to come and watch rather than sort of the old man or whatever.
It is a good strategy to sort of tap into that youth of the local area as well, because obviously being a relatively new club as such, like especially in that area, it's tapping into that the next generation, because once them 7, 8, 9-year-olds are 18, 19, 20, all of a sudden they go, oh fuck it, I'll go to MK. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
But go on, Greg, did you have something, mate?
It was pretty much that, mate. Just like how actually MKs, have they, like Milton Keynes, have they taken you in as such? And that is obviously, you've just touched on it, like you're going for the kids side to try and get that next generation in. But the older lot, like now, so that's they're just, as you say, they've already got their teams and they're just not coming.
Yeah, we have a lot over 60s, like granddads.
Yeah.
That might have been Arsenal fans, but they've moved to Milton Keynes and it's too far for them to go, and they go watch them football, and they enjoy the day out. And then we have the young families, and we're missing the chunk sort of
the core,
like your age sort of
Yeah.
lads, girls sort of 20 to 40-year-olds, where understandably their teams are on TV a lot, or they just don't want to come and watch. MK, like they're a Chelsea fan or they're a Tottenham fan, and they don't want to do it. And so you just got to wait, try and entice the kids and do what you can in the community, and hope eventually that it sort of builds. But I think any success on the pitch always helps.
Of course it does, yeah.
Definitely helps to accelerate that. It's just that, I think when we had the big games, we had like Man United and Liverpool, Chelsea, like the stadium sells out, and it creates a buzz in the city, and everyone enjoys it. But when you've got Crawley the week after, everyone doesn't seem so keen. It's so it's up to the club really to try and get as high as they can. So it would definitely help in terms of the fans. Yeah,
most definitely, mate. And then at the end of that season, I don't know what happened, but Martin Allen moved on. I don't know if he got sacked or whether he left or what, but Paul Ince then come in. What was he like as a character? Because you sort of hear two different sides of things, sort of the player side of things where he was the governor as such and sort of a bit of a hothead. What was he like as a manager? Was he similar?
No, he was more measured, I think, as a manager. This obviously he was Paul Ince, and so he had a massive reputation, and he had instant respect in the change room because of who he was. And so we didn't really need to have that temper because we was all like putting his hands anyway. Anything he said, you were jumping to do, sort of thing. But he was excellent. I've not got a bad word to say about him. When he come in and sort of try to bring his experience at the high level, kind of in terms of what they would do. I think the low levels is a bit more sort of get in their face, run hard, sort of a bit more honest, and he sort of kind of peeled it back a bit and said, no, at the big clubs, this is what we do, and sort of trying to change the mentality a little bit, and it worked really well. We had a really good team. He was very good, training was good, he was a good coach. He was like the first manager. We were top of the league and we come in on a Monday, and he said, like, how are you feeling? I said, yeah, really good. And he was like, listen, we're really pleased. You're playing really well. But get yourself home. I'll see you Thursday.
Wow.
And it's the first time I've ever had a day off up to that point. I was like 23 or 24. It's the first time I've ever been given a day off extra other than like a Wednesday. And I was just like, no, I want to train. And he was like, there's no need. Just get yourself home, go and play some golf.
Yes.
And it was just like, it was a test. So I'm half arguing him saying, no, I want to train. And he was like, listen, like, you don't need to. Just get off. And he had that kind of, as I said, like, most people think you have to work harder, but he was just a bit smart, and he was quite good psychologically, just to sort of say, like, have a couple of days. It's 2 days is not going to make a big difference every now and then. Yeah.
You think
go home, do your stuff.
Do you think that come from his time abroad in Italy? Because they have that sort of different approach in terms of that. Like, there's more days off, and the diet side is a bit more important than it is over here. And do you think that sort of touched on?
Yeah, he really like. He spoke more about Milan than he did any other club. When he was talking about different places he's been to, he had a lot of stuff that he spoke about coming from when he was at Inter. Yeah.
Well, he regrets leaving, didn't he? Because basically the owner loved him as well.
Yeah, a good relationship, yeah.
Wanted him to stick around, but he came back for sort of family reasons to bring his kids up and that. And the owner wanted him to sort of go into the sort of coaching side and sporting director side and all of that.
They loved him over there, yeah. They really did like him. And he sort of brought a lot of that, like the massage. He said the diet, we was allowed to drink on a Friday night. He said, like, it was unheard of. We was having dinner. He said, does anyone want a glass of red wine with your dinner? And so automatically we all say, like, no, I don't want anything. And he was like, listen, it's like, if you want a beer or a glass of red wine, it's not a problem. It's, don't before a game, won't affect your performance, might relax you. And we all said no, because it was just English.
Yeah,
not the norm.
You don't want to be that one to go, and smash it down, right?
Yeah, and so he kind of kept on offering it, and then we had a black called Kev Gallen, QPR striker.
Oh yeah,
he's brilliant, to be fair. Like, he's a funny bloke. He was out the team. I think he was 17th man, and he said, listen, if he asks this week, everyone say yes. So he's the man said, anyone ever read him? I said, yeah, we'll give it a go tonight. And so there's a table of 8 with glasses of red wine, and Kev was just necking it, and we was all just passing to the right every like 10 minutes, and Kev was just on it, just smashing back. He did about 2.5 bottles of red wine by himself.
Did he walk out?
But he was, but Ince brought that sort of culture in of, you know, just a little bit of a different way of looking at things especially at our level in League Two, where it's sort of a lot more like you've got to work as hard as you possibly can, and, you know, be fit and train every minute of the day, sort of thing. So yeah, he was excellent. That's
brilliant. Go on, Greg.
So did he come in and won the league, and then won the league trophy as well? So apart from, like, as we just touched on, like that side of it, what did he change in a footballing side to get you to their winning stuff?
He had some good players. We had a really good team, and he was very. We passed it, but we were like very front-footed. We just had a good mixture of, you know, we could have it with people if they wanted to have a fight, and if we wanted to play, we would do it as well. And we just had a very good team. We all knew our jobs, we knew what we were doing. Just in a way, we were basic, but we were very good at doing the basics. With lots of good players, and you know, good at set pieces, good at defending like stuff that sort of goes unnoticed, but picks you up 5-10 points in the season. And he sort of gelled it all together, and the group was probably my best in terms of a group of players. It was probably the strongest group of how we connected with each other and how we made you sort of become teammates. Was probably the strongest bond I've had with a group of players.
Cool. Because see, Jake Livermore, did he get Jake Livermore in?
Jake came in, yeah.
How was he? He was obviously a young player at the time.
Yeah, he didn't play much, Jake. He come in, he was a good size, to be fair. Even back then, he come in, and he didn't really play a lot. We had Keith in midfield, and a few other lads. Colin Cameron, little Scottish lad. Yeah. So Jake was mainly a sub, but he was quite quiet back then, and sort of kept himself to himself. He was, you know, you could tell he was talented, but he was more sort of used as a sub, I think, for that little bit that he was there.
What was that like as well, winning your first trophy, mate? Football League trophy at Wembley. What that must have been some feeling.
Yeah,
even though it isn't sort of one of the big sort of domestic cups, your FA Cup, League Cup, you've won a trophy at Wembley Stadium. Like,
yeah, exactly. What's it called now? The Papa John's, whatever they call it.
It changes every other season, doesn't it?
It was Johnson's paint back then, and I mean, we all, up until the final, I think most players don't really want to play in it. It's one of them competitions that the kids get put in, and it's a bit of an annoyance, really. But as soon as you get to that later stages, it becomes, it turns into a big deal, and everyone's desperate to play in it. And as you said, you know, it probably doesn't get the greatest viewing figures or whatever, but for the people that are involved in it, it's your day out. You get a chance to play at Wembley. Like, I was lucky enough to win at Wembley. You get to lift a trophy on the balcony, and
as captain and all, mate.
No, Keith was captain.
Was you not a skipper then, was you? No.
I was right next to him, yeah. Got second in line. It was just, it was, you know, it's just one of them days you don't forget. You know, not many players get to play at Wembley, and it was, you know, it was a huge honour, and the whole experience around it was just brilliant. And I think even now, you know, 20 years on, that trophy still exactly the same. That the early rounds is a bit of an annoyance, but it soon becomes a brilliant chance to play and win a trophy at Wembley, which is, you know, especially in the lower levels, you know it's, you ain't get to the FA Cup final every year, so it's something that you sort of treasure, really.
Yeah.
Did who was there for you on the day, mate? Did Dad get to come, and was Craig there? And
yeah, Mum, Dad come. They family got like a mini bus, or big bus actually, come. Saw my aunties and uncles and friends come, and so I think we had about 50, 60 people there in the end, which is nice. I mean, those days are really. It's just,
yeah, of course, yeah.
All your mates come and your family and that, and it's just a special memory because it just doesn't happen very often. So it was a great day. It was baking hot as well today, and it was just in a way perfect really, like to win it 2-0 in the last 20 minutes. We kind of knew that we'd won it, and so you could really enjoy like, actually I'm at Wembley playing and I'm going to win it sort of thing. So it was
crowd giving it,
yeah.
Hey.
That's fucking so good,
mate.
Yeah. And then at the end of that season, Ince's got headhunted by Blackburn Rovers, and gone there. For some reason he shouldn't have. A fucking Venky's in charge. Well done. But he's gone to Blackburn, and then Roberto Di Matteo came in, so another massive name in the game of football. And did he make you skipper straight away?
No, Keith was trying to leave because Ince wanted him at Blackburn.
Right.
And so Keith played, I think, 2 games of that season for us, and then he got sold. And then after that, to be fair, he was a bit of a strange character. He was very cold, like, you know, he wasn't. Ince was so like warm and a very like player manager. You know, everyone loved him. And Di Matteo was the complete opposite. I think the first couple of weeks.
Me actually.
Yeah, I mean Keith was trying to get out, so Keith wasn't being. He was being awkward, and he was being, you know, he was doing his best to get himself out the door. But we got on a training camp to Portugal, and Di Matteo just wasn't talking to the players. He was just ignoring us in the corridors. He would just blank you. We was training, and like people had a bad touch or something, he would laugh. It was a really strange atmosphere. It was like, and Keith rang the chairman and said, "Listen, like, if this carries on, like, there's gonna be like a bit of mutiny. Like, he's having off the boys and he's doing this." And then the next day he started this weird. Every day he come in and shook everyone's hand, and that continued for a whole year of every morning. The morning handshake, come in and stuff, and it did eventually improve, and he did warm up, but the first 6 weeks were a little bit difficult.
It's awkward, isn't it?
Yeah, and even the captaincy, he put the band between me and the boy called Sean O'Hanlon, who was a senior player at the time, a centre half. He put the band in between our 2 pegs, and Sean said, "Is it you or me?" And I've got no idea, as we didn't know, and we just. About 5 minutes before kickoff, he said, "Who's captain?" And he just said, "You." It was pretty unconvincing. It was almost like,
"Oh, thanks."
Yeah, like, yeah. You can have
I'll take it.
And that was it. That's how it started. It was like, you know, it was no come to my office and this is what I want from you, or you just left the band sort of in between the pegs sort of thing, and that's how it started for him. But it was it did improve. It did improve, but I think the first few months were tricky with him.
And that was his first job, wasn't it? So it's like to go and to do that to the players is very weird. And as you say, obviously it took a little while, but once you got going and whatnot, how was he after that? Like, and what was the difference between sort of him and Ince? Like, was it obviously with the Italian sort of background, Ince was obviously putting that across. Same for Di Matteo, obviously. What was he putting across to you?
Because he had success with you as well. He finished third in the league.
Yeah, we had a really good season. Yeah. He was very structured, very organised. So we had like areas of the pitch, like we wouldn't press in the final third. We'd only press the middle 2/3 of the pitch. Like we were really compact. He did a load of work every day with mannequins. So we'd have like a mannequin team out that he was going to play, and he would say right back, and everyone had to move as if the right back had it, move into shape.
Yeah. And
then he would move people literally by like 5 centimetres. He would say, like, "Louis, move." And I'd move 1 step and he'd go, no. And then make you stand. And he did that every single game. For every game, did it. Was it 46 times in a season he did it. But we did it, and in a way it kind of got into your brain, like without knowing. The team was so organised. And by that January time, you're thinking like, actually, we actually are a pretty good team here. Sort of by default, he's just kind of like numbed it into your head a little bit. And then we played some good stuff, and he was good fun to work. In the end, he warmed up. I think he was obviously a bit nervous at the start. I think he was a bit unsure of like the level and maybe the players that play at the level and what to expect. And I think it just took him a few months to sort of warm up. But in the end, he's, you know, if you watch how we played with him, he produced a pretty good team.
And obviously, you finished third. Did you think in your mind, like obviously seeing him after he'd moved on and everything, and then what he went on to achieve with Chelsea and whatnot?
Won the Champions League.
Yeah. Did you ever think that he would get to the, you know, just to manage a Premier League team maybe, or did you actually think he had it in him to go and do something big like that?
No, in honesty, no. He was a good manager. I think he'd been quite brutal in a lot of Ince's players were left over, and he changed the training schedule to Mondays off and then trained 4 days a week up to a game. And a lot of the boys didn't like it. It was new for us to do that. It's quite normal now, but sort of 10 years ago it wasn't, and a lot of boys didn't like it. And we had a meeting, and he sort of said, "I'm hearing that you don't like it. Has everyone got a problem?" And I think 3 or 4 boys spoke out against it, and within a week they'd all been released. And it kind of, I kind of felt like, you know, at our level you might get away with that, but as you go up the leagues and stuff, like there's gonna be some big characters, and they've all got an opinion, and you can't just get rid of players that are worth 20-30 million quid. So I always felt that would be a problem, because he didn't really like dissenting voices or people with opinion, and I always thought that'd be a problem. But he done well at West Brom, and you know, he was a nice bloke. I got nothing against him, and I'm glad to see that he done well. But I didn't see it personally. I didn't see him doing it.
Yeah, well, like you said, he moved on to West Brom, and then Paul Ince come back. Is that a strange like feeling for all the players? Like, was there a lot of the players still left from his time before? And
not as many as we'd lost a lot, and he changed. To be fair, he was quite bitter.
Really,
over his experience at Blackburn. I think he felt he didn't get a fair chance, and it always felt to me that he didn't really want to be back with us, but he had no real
option.
Like, he wanted to prove that they made a mistake, and we were sort of the next best thing because of what happened before. Yeah. And it never felt the same the second time round. You know, he was still, the team had changed. The players, like the way he was, the players that he had could be managed a certain way, and the players that we had when he come back needed a different kind of looking after. And he just never really settled back, and I always felt that he sort of resented being back at that level, because he done really well. And he had, was it 12 games at Blackburn? I think it was.
Yeah, it wasn't a lot.
It wasn't that much. I think before, when he got sacked the 3 games after, were like the 3 teams in the bottom 6 or something, and he felt that he should have been given those games to have a chance. And so yeah, when he come back, it never felt the same.
Yeah.
There's a couple of names there from that season that I've got written down. I don't know whether obviously Paul brought them in or not. Andros Townsend.
That was the following year, I think, wasn't it?
Was it the following year?
No, Andros was Ince, yeah.
Oh, was he Ince?
Oh, yeah. I was going to say, well, from what I've done on the research of it, and Nigel Quasi was one that I was just going to ask, obviously, Quashy, however you, yeah. Well, he was a bit of a seasoned pro, wasn't he? And obviously Andros would have been on loan. What were they like, mate?
Andros we played against Andros. He was on loan at Leyton Orient, and we played against him, and he absolutely destroyed us. And Ince had him in pretty much about 2 weeks later at our place. Back then he had an electric pace. He was so quick, and he was a really good player, but just very young. Didn't really sort of socialise in the sense that he was very professional, very strict with his diet. And he lived in a house with 3 other lads, about a minute from my house, and so we used to go out quite a bit together, and even like cinema and a bit of food in the evening. And Andros was very, I sit in my room and I want to prepare for training tomorrow. He was very dedicated at a really young age, almost to this too much of an extent, cinema is not a bad, you just need a bit of release sometimes and not to think about stuff. And
come on, Andros, you boring.
Yeah, come out for a beer.
Because I hear him on TalkSport now, and he does talk very well and everything. So what you're saying kind of does make sense, I suppose, that he's been so professional for so long, and it's just in him.
Probably sitting in his room practicing speaking, wasn't he?
Yeah.
It was just, it was a really quiet lad. It was good, and weirdly, I played with his brother at Wimbledon 5-6 years before.
Who's his brother?
Sadly, it was a boy called Curtis. He died when he was 18.
Oh,
he died in a car crash when he was in our youth team.
No way.
And at the funeral, Andros spoke, but he must have been 8 or 9, and he couldn't get above the platform to speak. And, he was speaking, everyone was crying their eyes out and stuff. It was really heartbreaking.
Wow.
And then he come back, and Andros never said anything to me about it. And then I see his dad at a game, and I said, "Look, wait, what were you doing here?" And he said, "I'm watching Andros." And I was just like, and I'd never put the two connections together. Yeah. So I played with his brother sort of 6-7 years beforehand, and then Andros, and then I'm not sure if sort of the loss of his brother made him that extra dedicated, because he felt that he wanted to really have a career and make something of himself and blah blah blah. But he was a nice kid and dedicated, and you could tell that he was much better than what we were. So you could always tell that he would go higher.
I never knew that.
No, nor did I.
I've never heard that at all.
And did he never mention to you that? Did he know that you played with his brother, and he didn't never sort of mention it?
Yeah, when I spoke to Andros about it the day after and said that I never knew, and he was just like, it just didn't.
Because he was a younger boy at the time.
Yeah, it just didn't come up in conversation, that way about it, sort of thing. But
mad, didn't it?
I know what the feeling though. I lost a brother at a similar sort of age to him when I was young. I was 8 when my brother passed away, and I know that sort of feeling where it's sort of like when you come into sort of contact with people that were either friends with your brother or whatever, you don't. It's weird. You sort of don't bring it up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's even though it's sort of like you just.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it was maybe talking about Curtis was painful for him, or brought back emotions and stuff. So it was, it was one of those subjects where I didn't want to sort of force myself. Once I knew, I didn't want to sort of keep going back to it, because it was, you're very aware that it's painful for him and whatnot, sort of thing. So you sort of just left it to him to be what it was. But it was a strange sort of circumstance that we sort of got brought back together again, really.
That's mental, isn't it? Unbelievable.
Yes.